Hi everyone. Happy Thursday, April 30th. It's the last poem of the day in National Poetry Month. Um, it's hard to believe we've been at this for as long as we've been at this. I was inspired in um, hearing Mr. Richardson's poem in particular last night by Ada Limon. The poem about poetry, and it's been in my head. So I wanted to share this poem by David Wagoner, which is called "On Being Asked to Discuss Poetic Theory." And so it's a cool poem that I think is it's just kind of interesting, right? It's meta. It's deep, but it's simple. It's a poem that fits. You know, I think it'll make sense why I was inspired by this, but by the poem Mr. Richardson read last night by Ada Limon. So this is David Wagoner's "On Being Asked to Discuss Poetic Theory." I know for a fact snow falls in the mountains. I've stood there while it fell on me and the temporarily bare stones. I could see it falling into the broken baffles of granite, hovering on the edge of thawing or staying frozen, both joining and withholding itself from its other self at the confused beginning of spillways and misdirected channels and transparently aimless pools while it gathered and went less often in the wrong directions. And I've followed the water down, like it, with no need to remember where I was or what I was, and stood beside its mouth on the ocean shore and looked back at the source, at that stark whiteness. If it all disappears behind clouds this winter, I can be certain that where I climbed those steeper and steeper miles along its path to the end of trees, to the end of crouching shrubs, to the last of the tendrils and wild flower heads, the same snow is falling. It reminds me, of the Limon poem. It reminds me of Billy Collins' introduction to poetry. It reminds me, of sometimes, Mr. Richardson makes a good point of the meaning. He mentioned this very early in the poem of the day. The meaning that you make of it is the most important meaning. And it's just really interesting, right? I've found the poem of the day to be bringing me intense joy and relief and solace and comfort and peace. And sometimes in class we can tend to get a little like, well, what does it mean? And so it's kind of just interesting, right? It's not getting caught up in this idea of like what it means. I understand what it means, but when we break it down, it's kind of interesting. It just is, right? There's something about this poem that's not. I don't think it's snarky. Maybe it's snarky, but maybe it's also honest, right? It even reminds me a little bit of Taylor Malley's "What Teachers Make" at the beginning, when so come on, Taylor, be honest. Like, what do you think about poetry? What's the deal with poetry? And so it's just about, it's about those honest truths. It's about those things that you notice, those moments, those observations you might happen to make. And I think Wagoner captures that really simply and beautifully. And I love a good poem about nature and, moving and the more things change, the more they say the same and things like that. So, thanks for tuning in. Turning the corner, entering May tomorrow. And I hope you're all well. Be good to yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Take care of yourselves and the people around you. And it's been a rewarding National Poetry Month. For me, at least. I hope it has for you. There are 30 poems. 29 of them well known. One of them you had to endure by me. All right, folks. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow for the first edition of the May Poem of the Day. See ya.